You are listening to Know You're Crazy. My name is Susan Denee. We all have crazy. What separates us is how we choose to deal with it. I'm going to be delivering engaging and actionable tools to own your crazy, treat your crazy, and turn it into your own superpower. I hope that you walk away from this show feeling the power and strength within you. And never forget to enjoy your journey because you are worth it. Hey everyone, this is Susan Denee, and you are listening to the Know You're Crazy show as I talk about the emotional recovery in the raw. You know, I had this fantastic weekend. I was able to perform some nuptials for friends of mine who were getting married in their 50s and 60s. It was a beautiful ceremony. I was reminded with creating that ceremony that we are never too old to find love, to find new satisfaction in our life, to find new things to do in our life. And yet we sometimes suffer from this belief that it's too late, or we start piling on thoughts that we are not energetic enough to do anything. We don't know how to get unstuck from different places in our life. There are phases we go through, perhaps. So how do we get unstuck from feeling too old? How do we get back into action? How do we renew that feeling of enthusiasm, of goal setting, of dreaming again when we have become stale and just don't know how to get there? It doesn't matter if you're in your 50s or 60s, or if you're in your 30s and you're feeling too old. Sometimes we just convince ourselves it's too late. I don't know where in our culture it became a good idea to encourage us to only go to college right after high school, to only burn it, do everything we can within the first four years of graduating, which half the time at that age of 18, 19, we don't know what the heck we want to do anyway. Sometimes, figuring out your future career for maybe the next 20, 30 years at the age of 18, our brain hasn't even fully developed at this point. But yet we have somehow created this world where there's an expectation that sort of drive and dream setting has been reserved for only one class of age, right? So when do we start doing that, placing that same emphasis on dream building, energy giving throughout our whole life? You might be asking, well, how do I get there then? Well, I'm going to tell you that today. Today's show is all about some high performance coaching for those of us who think we are just too old. You know, if you've been listening to the show for a while, or you've watched any of my social media posts or looked at my website, then you already know I'm a certified high performance coach, certified through the Experts Academy, a fantastic certification that does a great job in helping bring us back to the center of really getting to a point where we are living our highest self. And as I dive into this today, I'm going to really touch on two key areas of high performance. One is clarity, and another one is energy, and I may dabble in courage. So if you're getting too tired these days, if you feel like you don't have enough enthusiasm, let's say you look back on your younger years or another time in your life and you're like, where did that go? Then today's show is for you. Stay tuned, because I am going to be covering this important topic throughout today. So there's still hope. There's still hope for you. There's still hope. My personal story around this, in 2014, 15, somewhere in there, I was up to purchase a company I worked for, and it was going to be life transforming for me at the time. I hadn't been motivated to really do anything professionally other than what I had been doing for those prior 14, 15 years at the time. Because, I was paying the bills, I was paying the mortgage, I was raising my kids. I was a divorced woman at this point. The income was decent. Everything was going along just great. I was mentoring women in recovery. My life was really full. And then this opportunity came along. It was an opportunity I attempted to create on my own with the help of somebody I worked with. And we went for it. we were going to close on this business. It was going to be a few $1 million deal. It was a pretty successful business in the Puget Sound area here in Washington State. And 2 days before closing, the guy said he didn't want to sell. He didn't want to sell. I mean, how do I explain the devastation in that? Resting on my laurels in a way with my ambition. I was very ambitious. I was still helping people. I was still raising my girls. I was doing my thing. I think it was in a vigorous relationship at the time, still am, same guy. But, I had lost that hope of dreaming more for myself professionally. And I am not only emphasizing professional dreams today. Your dreams today might be in the health arena. Your dreams today might be in love life. But the example I'm telling you about, this particular thing in my life, had opened up this awareness that I really did desire more ambition-wise. I really did, and I didn't know. That was kind of like sleeping there. I think I had settled down, almost like the topic of the show. I had settled down and got cozy with paying the bills, taking a vacation now and then. Like, my needs were met. And I didn't realize that just having needs on the surface met was not serving my highest self. It wasn't feeding my inner knowing that I was capable of so much more. And many of you watching this right now are capable of a lot more than maybe what you are currently doing day to day. Heck, I'm capable of a lot more than what I'm doing every day. So I started dreaming back then. We were going to buy this company, and training started coming to mind. Ideas started flowing. I started becoming creative, something that had never really hit me before to that powerfully. It really hit me. I was daydreaming again. I mean, have you daydreamed lately? I was daydreaming again about possibility. I was so I would have been my late 30s, I believe, when this happened. Could have been early 40s. That's how long it had been. I mean, life, I'm not saying life wasn't good, but I also don't like to use gratitude as a Band-Aid to cover up just mediocrity. I have learned to be careful with that one. I can be grateful, but I can definitely be appreciative and still hope and dream for more. So this deal falls through 2 days before we're going to close. I mean, people, I took a second out on my house to put money down on this son of a gun, right? I was all in. Something awakened. I was in. I trusted these folks. I mean, I was daydreaming. And then, sorry, I changed my mind. Really? You just changed your mind. I've been going home and telling my family that I'm gonna have all these, doing all this stuff, and kind of told a couple friends, and we're just not gonna play no more. Like it's all over. And so the other two people of the company who were going to be part of this ordeal went back to their offices, and I got to walk back to my cubicle. Oh yeah. I was in cubicle world during this time. So I got to walk back to my cubicle and more or less be advised, go ahead and make your next phone call to the next customer. It was absolutely devastating. But something awakened that day. And that awakening brought me to a hunger that I wanted more in life. I didn't want to settle for the cubicle no more. I wanted to do what I inherently started being inspired to do. So I started working at it. And I felt young again. I felt inspired again. I felt like I had possibility in front of me again, but it was a decision I had to make for myself. I tell you that story today because sometimes we have been nestled in mediocrity for so long that we have justified it on some levels because, our needs are met. Who am I to complain? Who am I not to be grateful? Blah, blah, blah. But there's a hunger inside of us to be creative. There's a hunger inside of us maybe to serve others. There's a hunger inside us to travel the world, but we have given up hope that is a dream for us. And so today, we're going to be doing some high performance coaching, folks. I am going to be jumping in to some clarity, some energy, and some courage to help move you if this has been part of your story lately, if any of that resonates with you. So clarity. Why is clarity so important? To become clear on what you want in life is monumental in moving you from point A to point B.
whatever those points are. It's a conscious effort to take a moment of spot check for yourself, to notice where in your life you have become confused, or where in your life you suddenly have a lack of interest. Maybe in the past you had interest and now you're like, don't know. It doesn't matter. Like I said, if this is happening to you in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, like it does not matter. The point is how we feel sometimes. If we're feeling less than or unmotivated, sometimes we will equate that to our age and the lack of energy that we have. And different things can wear us down. Different things can kind of get in the thoughts and wear us down and convince us that we are not worth taking a step forward of change in our life. What are some of those things that may get in the way? The number one thing, in my humble opinion, I will say humble, but the number one thing I believe that gets in our way is what I was touching on at the beginning of this talk, and that's culture beliefs. How influenced are you by culture and what culture has established as a belief pattern that we are supposed to believe about how we show up and when we show up and what we choose to do at that time? We have to be careful about taking on a feeling of aging because culture told us we were supposed to get our degree when we were 21. You following me? Because culture used the word retirement when we turned into our 60s, and it started to symbolize this way of life, almost like a closure to a chapter, instead of welcoming a rites of passage to a new level of existence and experience and satisfaction. Retire. I mean, how exciting does that? No, it sounds very defining. We have to watch the words. Here's one. Senior discounts. What about youthful discounts? How about that? You see where I'm going with this as far as culture is concerned? There are a lot of different things that we surround ourselves with every single day, and we are unaware of how they are impacting us and our mindset. Paying close attention to the words that we use. You know, when we over-identify with age, when we over-identify with maybe the new lines on our face, or maybe the loss of a body, six-pack abs, maybe. I mean, when we over-identify with these things and then we connect it to quote unquote aging, that in of itself will we will start to negotiate our youthful mindset. And over time, we will start to replace it. I have somebody very close to me who is all about youthful mindset. She's careful with every single word she uses. I've never heard her disclose her age. She's just, that's the way she rolls, because she believes that strongly, that it is just a mindset that we are able to do anything and everything we want to do for as long as we want. But sometimes we've been doing that for so long, giving up possibility, handing it over to these beliefs, that we don't know how to get back into a mindset of hopefulness. So if any of that appeals to you today, if any of that is resonating, if you are interested in knowing how to get back on track, then I encourage you to stick around. I'm going to take a short break. And when I come back, I'm going to discuss a few of those life events that may come into play and impact the culture behind making us believe that it's too late. And then I'm going to be talking about some examples of things you can do. We're going to be doing some specific coaching on clarity for you today. And then by the end of the show, as always, I'm going to give you a handful of solutions that you can put into place today to help reverse any oldness you got going on. All right, be back shortly. Thanks. Hey folks, welcome back to the Know You're Crazy show. My name is Susan Denee, and you are listening to Emotional Recovery in the Raw. What are we recovering from today? Oldness. We're recovering from oldness, mindset oldness. That's what I'm talking about. If you join me for that very short first quarter of time of the hour, you heard me talking about how we adopt a mindset of I will say how the lack of possibility can creep in on us as we mature in our years, whether this is happening in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s. A couple of examples I was giving in that first part was culture goes a long way in influencing us. And if you've listened to me for a while, you know I'm really big on paying attention to what is influencing you today. Just look around. Who or what is influencing you? Where are your ideas coming from? How are you establishing your agency with yourself? What are you comparing yourself to? Sometimes the influence that we're adopting in our life is coming from a comparison with others where we might feel lack actually, and then we're trying to live up to something that we are not. And so all of these type of things can influence us to where we start to give up and we have lack of possibility. And the more we mature in our years, sometimes some things also impact that. Life events may impact that. One life event that I had was when I first experienced the loss of somebody close to me, something I had never experienced before. I wasn't ready for that. I honestly felt like, is this already happening to me in my mid 40s? Like, this isn't fair. Have I officially gotten old? Like, people are dying on me now? I mean, that literally was a thought of mine. Because, obviously as we get older, people transition. And so the death of somebody might stir you into thinking that I've moved into this new arena of age or life experience. Health dilemmas. I know we have health dilemmas when we are younger, some of us do, but they're kind of waiting for when we get older. I mean, that's just the way it goes. The body's worn out, especially if we've been hogging down toxins and fried food and sugar, the new Alzheimer's, number 4 type diabetes now, isn't that what they're calling it? And so if that's been our experience, the body's finally given in those later years, and it's like, I can't do this no more. All of a sudden we got rheumatoid arthritis and we've got inflammation, and we're like, what happened? And the energy starts to come down and we feel older when that happens. Another thing for ladies and men, I remembered men this round, menopause and andropause. I am guilty of this one. I am totally guilty about this one because I have become educated as a woman going through this, how much the body changes. And even as I was preparing for this show, I said to myself, I need to really look at this as a rites of passage and not as an aging thing. Like, there has to be a tweak in my perspective on this, because if I'm not careful, all possibility starts to go away, because man, the body starts to change in ways that was like almost like a light switch. Like, what happened to that definition over there? Oh, that doesn't work no more. Oh, I eat that one thing and now I'm inflamed for days. It's a really weird thing. And men, same with men with andropause and noticing the testosterone levels are going down, or they can't run at the gym like they used to because the knees ain't holding out no more. I mean, there's different signs like that can also impact that mindset of youthfulness that we would love to keep and hang on to. And then the last one I'll say that can really impact this is being single in later years. Have you given up on the possibility of love in your mature years? Sometimes that can trigger loneliness. It can trigger desperation. We feel we don't look as attractive as we used to, and there's like an impending doom. Now, this comes up a lot with those of us in recovery, because I mean, let's face it, when we get into recovery, some of us have burned down the house. I mean, 1, 2, 3 marriages. And then we get in recovery, we emotionally learn, we recover, we find our part in things, we become spiritual, we start understanding what our true needs are, and we're like, I ain't going back to that sick way of looking at relationships. So our expectations, our standards heighten, and it's hard to find somebody sometimes to date. And so sometimes in recovery, we see this where it's really hard to hang on to that youthful mindset when the clock's a ticking and you're still single. And you're thinking, where's Mr. or Mrs. right now, or he or they or whatever, right? But so that's a life event that can happen that may trigger this feeling of getting old. So how can enlisting the action of clarity help you? How can being clear about your life help you? As I began to explain before I went to break, clarity is key in getting you from point A to point B. I like to say, it's almost like a spot check inventory in a way. So I'm going to ask a few questions of you. This is simply high performance coaching to get you thinking about these things just for you. And whether or not the topic today on feeling old and wanting to move, maybe that's not what you need to be clear about. Maybe you're like, I feel youthful, I feel good in my own skin, but man, professionally, I feel really stuck. And it has nothing to do with age. Maybe that's your complaint with health. Maybe the older thing's not even hitting your radar, but man, I'd like to lose about 50 pounds. And so if those things resonate with you today, just remember, this is high performance coaching. It can be used across a variety of things to help elevate you to new levels of satisfaction. That's what this is all about. So, clarity. Do you feel right now that you are living in alignment and congruent with the best of who you are? Congruent with the best of who you are. So congruency is absolutely like being matched up. Am I consistent? Am I congruent with my best of who I am? You know, when I shared that story of the professional, which ended up really being a professional rock bottom that lasted a couple of years. I mean, that's how long I had to feel sorry for myself after that before I pulled my head out of you know what and started actually going into action. And it took an inspirational speaker for me to listen to on YouTube for me to wake up one day and make a change, because that inspirational speaker had said something like, you know, we go to Les Brown, love Les Brown. We go to work every day miserable, and yet we do nothing about it. How about we wake up every day miserable about our weight, and yet we do nothing about it? Maybe we wake up every day miserable about our lack of relationships, but we do nothing about it, right? So in your life, do you feel as if you are living in alignment and congruent with the best of who you are? Do you feel that way? And if the answer is, well, what is the best of who I am? Well, think that through. What is your best? And are you living it? Usually there's an intuitive hit there. When I ask that question, are you living your best of who you are? You're going to know. You're going to know. If it's a nope, I'm not, then all that says is that there's room for improvement. That's all that says. There's hope in that. There's desire in that. There's awareness in being honest with that. Honesty with that is the beginning of getting you from point A to point B. Because the topic of my show is around aging, is this the youngest that you can feel? Is this the youngest that you could feel? Just think about that. A conversation I had with someone recently, we were talking about, you know, do you need to change your haircut? Do you need to color your hair to feel a little bit more youthful? Who cares? I mean, this is your journey. It's nobody else's journey. Have you been wearing old lady clothes too long? I mean, I'm just saying. Are you slacking? Are you wearing slacks? Maybe that's a little bit too old. That might be more of my mom's generation, but I'm just saying. How are you dressing today? I'm not talking, I mean, if you're in your 60s, you can wear a midriff if you like when they do in their 20s. I mean, it's up to you. But do you see the point I'm making? Like, are there areas in your life where you could act a little bit more youthful or do something that makes you feel better about yourself to feel more youthful? So how is your behavior in regards to aging? How clear are you about your activities that you're doing? I think one of the traps that we can fall into, and I am super guilty of this, is becoming so routine and not forcing myself to do fun stuff. Like there's a couple concerts coming to town. there's always a couple concerts coming to town in Seattle. And my husband loves talking about going to concerts, yet we rarely will actually do it. And I don't know what gets in the way of that. I don't know if it's, I don't want to spend that much money on tickets, or it's too far ahead and it gets forgotten about. Like, I don't know, but the fun thing to do, the youthful thing to do would be book the tickets, do what you got to do. You have to sometimes create the fun and the youthfulness in your life. If it has settled down to the point where there's never no playtime, there's no playtime. It's all too serious. It's responsible. I got to clean the house. I need to do the dishes. I need to pick up the dog crap in the backyard. I need to take the kids to school, and it's all serious and there's no playfulness involved. Of course we feel older because we've gone way too responsible on it. I used to be so guilty of this, way overly responsible and not enough play. It was years ago in a therapy session, my therapist asked me, "What are you doing to play?" I almost had to vomit. I'm like, play? Like, who plays? That's how serious I had started taking life. And so if you are taking life too serious, is that something that you'd like to gain some clarity around? What areas of your life do you feel uncertain, confused, or you just don't have enough direction? What areas of your life do you feel confusion, uncertain, and not enough direction? Fear will kick in when we have uncertainty. Works kind of like a double-edged sword. There's a positive edge to it, and there's maybe a not so positive edge to it. Once we understand that uncertainty is actually a gift and an act of faith that can really be used to build enthusiasm and excitement, and uncertainty can actually help us become more intentional with creating fun things to do, which will result in a great outcome. Until we learn that, like really live it and breathe it, we will use uncertainty as a justification of being fearful and paralyzing us to no movement at all. If I can't control the outcome of this thing, then I'm not going to do it. But yet there will be a yearning on the inside of you that really has a desire to do this thing. But because you can't control the outcome, you withhold yourself from doing that. Because you can't control it, you refuse to do it. And then you remain in conflict with the desire and not acting upon that desire. That is like the ultimate lack of altruistic integrity. It's not really spiritual, but it's that sense of agency, not being within integrity of yourself. Full circle moment. I had somebody very close to me when I had that professional dilemma. And this really is what eventually made me change completely and walk away from that career of 20 years, was when she said to me, the more you walk into that office and don't want to be there, you will suffer a huge lot. You're out of integrity. And I actually had to Google the word integrity. And so I looked, and once she said it though, and I Googled it and I took that in, like I am living the majority of my life out of alignment. Remember what I asked that question was, are you aligned with your best self? I was not aligned with my best self. I had a desire to do something differently. And yet every day my actions were taking me in another direction because of uncertainty about how I was going to get paid if I chose something different. I could not control the outcome. I had no way of determining what it would be, so I stayed stuck. And in that stuckness, we will suffer lack of integrity. And what happens is when one area of your life suffers in integrity, this might be health for you. You may be on a roller coaster diet, self-beat up stuff constantly. Hey, I've been there suffering with obsession of food or not enough food, calorie in, calorie out, sugar, no sugar, keto, Play-Doh, whatever. You know what I'm getting at. So been there. But when we are in that desire mode that we really want to do something and then we continue to go against ourselves, we're out of integrity. And so what can happen with that is we have become confused. We want something, but we can't get it and we start losing our enthusiasm and our willingness to continue to try for it, we lose hope. We lose hope. So now we've got uncertainty and now we have confusion. Why can't I do this? I keep wanting this thing, but I can't get there. Then we start beating ourselves up over it. You following me? So really in that, when we get to that point of uncertainty and confusion, aren't we really lacking direction on what the next indicated step is? How do I get from point A to point B? And we've lost all clarity. We have no clarity about what the direction is or even why we're doing it at that point sometimes. So what do? One of the actions I would highly suggest is get somebody to help you if you haven't done that. Get somebody to help you. Therapist, mentor, coach. Somebody outside your personal circle usually works best because they're not attached to your personal life. Just a suggestion. That's why people pay for experts in this area. But that's the first one. Then the number, there must be a decision of clarity to take accountability for your life. We are so in a phase right now where everybody's blaming somebody for their lack of happiness or their lack of joy, and it's their fault or it's their fault. It's like, where's our accountability anymore? I mean, one of the, there are treasures for me. All these trips I've had to go back to Nebraska to the Midwest, and there's different culture mindsets. There's like pros and cons. There's all these different personalities that exist. I mean, if you travel at all, you understand, like we were in Canada recently, different mindsets, so welcoming, so friendly, very laid back, I would say, not interested in the detail of the stuff, right? Like giving people the benefit of the doubt, automatically giving trust, a different culture, a different mindset. When I travel, I find different mindsets all over, right? When I'm in Nebraska, one thing that I really treasure is they are still, those Nebraskans, my roots, are all still about taking accountability for their life. They are going to take accountability for their life and their direction. Yeah, there might be one or two people. I'm not saying I'm definitely, I'm talking in general, but stuff gets done there. Nobody's looking to blame everybody for their lack of action or their lack of motivation. They're taking accountability and initiative. It just seems to carry in that culture of the Midwest. We do have some of that here, but sometimes we also get a little bit soft. Wouldn't you say that? Like we get kind of soft, as if everybody's supposed to be doing something for us. And the only way that you're going to have a more satisfying life, the only way that you're going to get from point A to point B is if there is a decision made to take accountability for your life, because the only person that's going to be able to move you from point A to point B is you. That's it. Nobody's going to be able to do it for you. All right. Before I'm going to take it, I'm going to keep going, and then I'll take a break here in about 10 minutes. As we learn to take accountability for our life, like some of this may feel really overwhelming, but what happens when you're young? Think about in the younger years. Think about, like, I've got a couple kiddos that are right now getting ready to venture out on their own, and I'm seeing the excitement, and I'm witnessing that first moment of clarity where they're realizing, I'm going to live on my own. I'm no longer going to have to come home to a house of parents. And the taste of that freedom is starting to kick in. And I'm witnessing the enthusiasm, and I'm seeing the long drives to the town that they're about to go live in. And I can sense the excitement. It's such a beautiful thing to witness and to be part of. And it also takes a lot of courage to do that. And for some reason, I think, as a culture, because we have influenced so much in our younger years about how things should be right out of high school, this is the way it should go down, that having that same courage in our later years is not as easy. Sometimes it's because of that responsibility thing. Sometimes it's because financially we feel we're just not worth spending that much money on ourselves. How are things going to be? How are things going to really work out? We're in that uncertain thing again. We want to control the outcome, so we ignore the present moment. We refuse to do what satisfies us in the moment. We put everybody in front. We put the bills in front. We put the family in front. We put other people's opinions and emotions in front of our own desires. And then at the end of the day, wonder why we're not getting what we want. We refuse to take risks, and I understand it's not as easy as we mature in our years to make sudden decisions. We do have more responsibility sometimes, but is there a way to practice more courage in your decision making so that you can grant yourself some exciting opportunities just for you? Just ask yourself, what is it that if you could have right now, if you could set a goal today for you? One, when's the last time you set a goal? Okay, like, has it been a while? Has it been a while? That's okay if it's been a while. It was a while for me until that company thing, right? So set a goal. What is one thing that you would love to see come to fruition for you? What is the one thing? Just hold that thought. Letting you hold the thought. Now, what is the first step you can take towards that goal? What is the first step? Is it making a call to tell somebody that you're going to do it? Is it getting your calendar out and looking to find out, when you can sit down and really plan this goal out? Like, is it just practicing courage and saying to yourself, I'm going to do this. I have been thinking about this forever. I keep depriving myself because I'm doing that blaming thing. I'm blaming it on all these extracurricular, things going on. I continue to piss and moan about it, that it's not going to happen, but I haven't taken accountability for my life or my happiness enough. And because of my blaming, I'm actually stuck in uncertainty because I'm just scared. Maybe the step towards that goal is taking accountability for that and realizing that I can shift my decision anytime I want. I am worthy of a new way of doing things. I am worthy of setting this goal. I am worthy of taking that trip. I am worthy of buying that next big thing. Like, I'm worth that, because folks, here's the deal. I just had a woman that I mentor, horrible situation. A 23-year-old daughter was hospitalized and gone within 3 weeks, unexpected illness. Why do I tell that story? Because today is what we have. And if we're waiting for all the pieces of the puzzle to align just perfectly before we decide to take a courageous step of action, do you know who's going to lose in the end? It's going to be you. It's going to be you. And I'm just here to tell you, I work with a lot of individuals, and you are amazing people who have a ton of possibility in front of you. And it is never, ever too late to change it up. Okay, I'm going to take a break here, but when I return, I'm going to touch on elevating your energy to help you feel younger. What can you do? We've already got some clarity maybe on some directions you want to take. So now let's talk about energy. I'm just going to touch on it today because really for the last part of the show, I want to get into action, tangible steps that you can take and apply, after this show, if you so deem, right? So I can talk all day. I can give you some insight into clarity. I can provide some good questions for you to why clarity is so important. I'm going to do the same thing with energy when we come back. But then I want to give you some actual concrete suggestions and directions, whichever one you want to choose there, to take it to the next level for you and how to get started so that you can get unstuck from whatever has convinced you that you're too old or too responsible or too stuck to move from point A to point B. It's time to get excited. It's time to create new opportunities for you. It's never too late. So I will be back here shortly, and we will go into some more solution to get you unstuck. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Know You're Crazy show. My name is Susan Denee, and you are listening to Emotional Recovery in the Raw. Specifically today, I am talking about high performance coaching for those of us who feel we are too old. What's that all about? If you've been joining me for the first 45 minutes of the show, you've listened to me talk about the importance of clarity, of beliefs. Why do we feel we are too old? Why do we feel we can't get from point A to point B? How culture beliefs can impact that, how life events can impact that and kind of keep us stuck when we choose to pick it up and apply it. And then I went into clarity, how important it is to be clear. Are we living our highest self? Are we living to our fullest possibility? And there's usually an intuitive answer in the inside that we feel and we know. And so then we get to look at, why am I holding back? And what would I need to do to dream again? What would I need to do to daydream again? When's the last time I daydreamed? And is there a goal that I could set? Has there been something that I've been romanticizing about or saying that I want, but then not generating it because I am blaming some facet of my life of uncertainty that I can't control the outcome, so therefore I will refuse to actually put into motion a goal to make this thing happen for myself? Real easy to fall into that, getting bogged down with responsibility, getting bogged down with putting everything else in front of what we want. And I'm not saying this is about being completely selfish and self-centered, but what I am saying is we are worth honoring. You are worth honoring yourself enough to dream again. You are worth honoring yourself enough to set goals and achieve, no matter what age you are at. And the last I'll say on that first part of the show is, well, culture does a really good job of convincing us that the gung-ho attitude and get stuff done is like right out of high school. That's where we're encouraging our careers and our college degrees. And those of us who wise up later on are like, you know what? I go back to school whenever I want to go back to school. I can get educated whenever I want to get educated. I can change it up. I have seen and witnessed miraculous comebacks, if you want to call it a comeback, or miraculous awakenings into dream setting in women and men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, like redo or start over or just get started. I've seen women go from in recovery, from living in sober housing to owning their own place, from working, same person, making McDonald's to now making over 6 figures, married. I mean, it's crazy the things that we can do when we set our mind to it. And so for today's show, I wanted to throw out a couple high performance coaching things for you to help you if you're somebody who feels like I would really like to move from point A to point B. The first one was clarity, getting clear on where you're at, getting clear if you're wearing your highest self, all of the above. What would you need to do to set that goal? Get some clarity. What is the goal? What is the first step I can take for that goal? Now moving on is I'm going to move on to energy, because let's face it, the more energy we have, the better off we feel. Sometimes the more youthful we feel with the more energy we have. So energy is a key component to longevity and feeling younger. It is what it is. It is one of the most important topics in high performance. So I ask you, how have you felt in the last 3 months regarding your physical, mental vibrancy? How have you felt in the last 3 months concerning your physical, mental vibrancy? And why is that? Why have you felt that way? Whether it's, I have felt fantastic these last 3 months, what'd you do? What'd you do over the last 3 months that made you feel that fantastic? Or I have felt like I am dragging. What's changed? Or what is still not changing for you? What is it? What routines do you have for recharging daily? What is it that you do every day or weekly or monthly to recharge? What is it that you do? Are you paying attention to getting some quality alone time? Sometimes we have to step away in order to reboot, if you know what I mean, especially if you were listening to last week's show and where I was going on about the emotional jacket, codependency and the emotional jacket. Those of us who might suffer from the codependency or have in the past understand what energy suckers people will become for us when we are so enmeshed with other people, what they do, how they do it, when they're doing it, are they coming, are they going, what are they, so much so that we lose sight of ourselves. I mean, the ultimate addiction, codependency, focusing on others and becoming so addicted to that we don't ever focus on ourselves. And then we end up getting resentful that we're wearing their emotional jacket. They never asked us to put it on. That's an energy sucker. If we are constantly looking at somebody else and we are never taking care of ourselves, that's an energy sucker. And so I just ask you, what are you doing to recharge daily? Do you need some alone time? How about do you need to take a walk? You need to take a walk. I know for me, that, my husband and I, we do our own thing all during the day. And sometimes, when we're, really in it, whether we've got projects going on or like we just recently traveled, that Canada trip, there were a couple of days where I had to stay up late and watch Game of Thrones. That was my recharge. Had nothing to do with, wanting to, no, I knew I needed my downtime. I needed time just to chill by myself and do something that I enjoy, which, dude, Game of Thrones, that's just a great series in my opinion. So, I did that for a couple of nights, but I purposely knew I was doing it to recharge. Like I understood I needed that downtime just for me, not because anybody was doing anything or anybody was showing up wrong. None of that. It was just alone time. Alone time can be super healthy for us when we are just enjoying our alone time and taking that relax. So recharge, what do you do? What is something that you could do that will make you feel more vibrant? Vibrancy. Think about that word, just vibrancy. What is something that you could do that would make you feel more vibrant? What is something that you could achieve if you had 3 times more energy? If you had 3 times more energy, what would you do? Can you see yourself doing it? What would it take to get 2 times more energy? What baby step could you take today to start to generate more energy? I go to baby steps. There can be gigantic steps you can take too. Nobody's saying it has to be a baby step. But if it gets overwhelming or it feels hopeless to you, take a baby step. Maybe the baby step is just simply deciding that you're going to decide to get 2 times more energy. That simple. If you become committed to your optimal health, what would you start and stop doing immediately? If health and energy were at the top of the chart, what would you immediately stop doing? If that was going to be 150% of your focus, what would you immediately stop doing to embrace more vibrancy, more health, and more energy in your life? And what would you replace it with, and what would you start doing immediately? These are just thoughts, questions for you to ponder, to ask yourself, how could I increase these things for me? And then last but not least, I'm going to wrap up this show today with some action steps, some tangible action steps for you. If you are wanting to get from point A to point B, you'd like to elevate your life a little bit, you'd like a little bit more satisfaction, you're relating to the fact that maybe you've been stalling for too long, what are some things that you can do to feel younger than you feel, to feel more energetic than you feel, to take some action if you've been kind of slowly, poking along? Number 1, in regards to feeling youthful and maybe energetic too. Number 1, remember a time in your life when you felt playful. Just remember the time. When was it? Reflect, close your eyes, imagine that time, feel that moment. Just feel it. Revisit the emotion. When was a time that you felt playful? Do you remember the laughter? Do you remember what you were doing? Who were you doing it with? Where were you at? What did you enjoy about it? Why did it feel so playful? Okay, that's your first action. Just reflect and think of a time when you felt playful. Number 2, is it time to change up your style? Have you begun to look older simply because maybe you felt you didn't deserve to dress young? I personally have been through this a little bit. In fact, this one resonated with me because, as for me and my own experience, like there are certain things I may have wore, 15 years ago that I won't wear today. Now, my husband wishes I would wear it today, but it ain't going to happen. But then he gets into, well, then what do I wear? It's not like I'm a Hollywood actress with, all them stuff they wear. Like I guess I could, but I'm really kind of working from my shack and going to the grocery store and coaching by Zoom. I'm not real sure where a sexy, outfit's going to fit, but I have to be cognizant. Like I went to a conference a few months back for this medical healthcare, and I purposely got in my business clothes and dressed up because I needed to remind myself the confidence and somewhat just the expectation of professionalism that can be had by doing that. And so put on the high heels, haven't worn them in a while, and just kind of, but I had to kind of live that again. So this one personally relates to me. What is it that you'd like to do to freshen up and look a little bit younger? Maybe it's a fresh new haircut, fresh new shave, All right, number 3, ask yourself, if I was, let's say you're in your mid-50s, okay? If I was 30, what would I do today? Imagine a younger version of yourself. What would you do differently if it was a younger version? What would you do? Would you tell everybody, hey, I'm out of here, I'm taking off on my motorcycle for a few days? Would you give yourself permission to go buy yourself that kick-ass pair of shoes at the store, and now you've convinced yourself you just shouldn't do that? Like, what would it be? Would you go to the arcade and play some games? Maybe that's your 20s. I don't know, maybe that's your teens. I don't know, but arcades are fun. Are there even arcades anymore? Like, there's got to be. I think I guess it's Xbox now. Maybe that's what you do. I don't know, but you're understanding the point. Okay, I'm wrapping up here. What do we got? Number 4, what can you do to feel life come back in? How can I get my life, the vibrancy, the excitement, the joy, the satisfaction? How can I get that back into my life? Well, I know for me, when you're talking for an hour on a podcast, or you're teaching to a group of people for a significant amount of time, and you've got a lot of stuff going on, you got to bring the energy. And so one of the things that I like to do to bring the energy is I crank the music. Sometimes I'll watch an inspiring movie. Can you see inspiration? Can you feel inspiration? All right. So those are the tangible steps today. If you need those tangible steps, go back through the show. You can listen to them. In the meantime, remember that no matter what age you are, no matter where you're at in life, you absolutely have it within you to change it up from any point you want. All it's going to require is a little bit of clarity. Embrace the accountability for your life, because only you can embrace that life that you desire. Vision what you would like, and you can do this. You can do this. And when it gets daunting, keep it simple. Next indicated step, no problem. And here, one more, and then I'm done. One more, I'm done. Think about the worst thing you've ever been through in your life. The worst thing: heartache, despair. If you're somebody who's gotten sober, this is what I would say. If you can get sober, you can get from point A to point B. Just make a start. All right. If you've recovered, you got this. All right, guys, have a great night. See you next week. Bye.
You have been listening to No, You're Crazy.
Crazy.
And my name is Susan Denee. We are identifying, understanding, and treating your crazy one episode at a time. Tune in to transformationtalkradio.com. To connect with me or Growth Spurt Your Life, please visit susandenee.com. That's Susan Denee, DENEE.com.